Welcome, beautiful soul. Amara LeBlanc's journey is one of love, loss, and the strength to rise again. A woman who loved deeply, trusted fully, and in a single moment, had both love and trust shattered. But even in heartbreak, she refused to lose herself. Follow Amara's story as she faces betrayal and the hard choice of healing. Will she find peace? Or will her pain push her towards something else? The path is filled with questions. What does it take to heal and reclaim what was lost? Stay tuned to find out.
The night everything changed had begun like any other celebration. Music drifted across the ballroom. Crystal lights shimmered from the ceiling. People in polished gowns and tailored suits smiled as if nothing in the world could crack their peace. Amara arrived with her husband David by her side. They looked like a strong couple to everyone watching, but she could feel something different in the air around him. Something distant. Something careless. Her best friend Camille floated across the room in a silver dress, the kind of beauty that made people pause when she walked by. Camille had become a billionaire only 2 years earlier with a combination of tech influence and beauty investments. Tonight was her celebration. The gala was filled with people who wanted to be near her success. Amara felt proud of Camille. They had known each other since childhood. They had shared dorm rooms, shared meals, shared late-night talks and dreams. Camille had always been ambitious and confident. Amara respected that. She had never imagined Camille would one day stand between her and her marriage. David spent most of the evening drifting closer to Camille. He laughed with her. He whispered with her. He followed her through conversations as if he belonged in her shadow. Amara noticed it all but chose to stay steady. She did not want to create tension at someone else's celebration. She wanted to be respectful. She wanted to believe David was being careless, not disloyal. Around the middle of the night, Amara stepped out onto the balcony to catch her breath. She leaned against the rail and looked at the city lights. She let the cool air touch her skin and tried to settle her thoughts. She was not a woman who entertained doubt easily, but her spirit felt unsettled. A few moments passed before she heard footsteps inside the doorway. She expected someone to join her, maybe even David. Instead, she heard his voice from the shadows behind her. She stayed still. David spoke softly but clearly. "I cannot keep pretending. I want to be with you. I am choosing you." Camille's voice followed in a fragile whisper. "What about Amara? This will break her." David answered with a tone that sliced through Amara's chest. "She will be fine. She will never reach your level. I am choosing the winning team." Amara did not move. She did not gasp. She did not let her breath shake. She stood there with her hands resting on the rail and let the truth settle inside her. The pain was real, but it did not control her. Her dignity stayed steady in her chest like a quiet flame. She turned around a moment later and walked back inside without making a sound. She did not confront either of them. She did not shout or cry. She simply decided she would no longer shrink herself for a man who believed she was less than enough. That was the night her life cracked open. That was also the night her new life began. Amara woke early the next morning. She had barely slept, but her mind felt strangely clear. She stared at the ceiling for a moment and allowed herself to breathe through the heaviness resting on her chest. The betrayal still hurt. The words still echoed in her mind. But she did not feel broken. She felt awake in a way she had not felt in years. She walked downstairs and found David standing in the kitchen with his phone in his hand. He looked up briefly but did not offer a warm smile or a soft word. His energy was distant. He looked like a man who had already chosen another life and was only waiting to say it aloud. Amara poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter. She did not want to drag the moment into a painful fight. She wanted truth spoken plainly. She deserved that much. "Are you in love with Camille?" she asked gently. David froze. His face shifted with guilt and hesitation. "How did you know?" "I heard you last night," she said. Her voice remained calm, steady, grounded. "You were not quiet." David sighed and placed his phone on the counter. "I did not want it to happen like this." "But it happened," Amara said softly. He nodded. "Camille and I have feelings for each other. It was not planned, it just happened. She understands my goals. She moves in rooms that I want access to. She pushes me forward." Amara kept her eyes steady. "And I do not." David rubbed his forehead. "You are a good woman, Amara. You are comfortable. But Camille is different. She is powerful. She is successful. She is already a billionaire. She can open doors that you cannot. I am choosing the life that aligns with my future." Amara felt the sting of his words but refused to shrink under them. "Then go where you want to go," she said. "I will not hold you." David looked confused by her calm. "You are not going to fight this." "No," she replied quietly. "I do not fight for someone who does not see my worth. I release you." David packed his bags within an hour. Amara watched him move through the house with an impatient rhythm as if he were racing toward a future he believed would make him whole. When he walked toward the door, she met his eyes one last time. "I hope she treats you well," Amara said. David hesitated. "You are really letting me go like this?" Amara nodded. "You let yourself go long before today." She closed the door gently behind him. The quiet that followed felt heavy, but not hopeless. Amara walked into the living room and stood in the center of the space. She took a slow breath and reminded herself she had survived far worse moments in her life. She whispered to herself, "This is not the end of my story." She spent the morning opening windows and letting light fill the rooms. She cleaned quietly, not to distract herself but to reclaim her space. A home that once echoed with shared routines slowly softened into a space that belonged entirely to her. By noon, she picked up her grandmother's old recipe book from the nightstand. The leather cover felt familiar under her palm. Inside were handwritten formulas for skin balms, hair oils, and healing creams. Recipes passed from one generation to the next. She held the book close to her chest and felt something open inside her. She whispered, "Maybe this is where I begin." She walked into the kitchen, gathered ingredients, and started mixing. The scent of oils filled the air. The process felt grounding. Her grandmother's wisdom moved through her hands. When she placed the first jar on the counter, she felt a spark of pride. She created 3 jars before evening arrived. She lined them neatly across the counter, each one holding the possibility of a life she had not yet imagined. She named the product LeBlanc Legacy. Not out of ambition, out of honor. She went to sleep knowing she had taken the first step toward the woman she was meant to become. Amara woke the next day to a soft strip of sunlight crossing her bedroom wall. She sat up slowly, taking a moment to understand the quiet inside the house. It was a different quiet than before. It was not the heaviness of betrayal. It was not the ache that pressed against her chest last night. This quiet felt like space. Space to breathe without checking someone else's mood. Space to exist without shrinking for anyone. Space to start building something that came entirely from her own hands. She wrapped her robe around her shoulders and walked into the kitchen. The 3 small jars she made the night before were still lined up neatly on the counter. She picked up the first jar and opened the lid. The fragrance that rose from it reminded her of childhood afternoons in her grandmother's house when the air smelled like warm oil and herbs simmering on the stove. She closed her eyes and allowed herself to feel that comfort. It steadied her. After breakfast, she cleaned her kitchen table and spread out her ingredients again. She was not working with any plan or strategy yet. She was following instinct. She combined oils and butters, stirred mixtures over gentle heat, and experimented with textures. The process consumed her. Hours passed without her realizing it. Around midday, someone knocked on the door. Amara wiped her hands and opened it to find her cousin Nadia standing outside with a tote bag and an expression that mixed concern with determination. Nadia stepped inside without waiting to be invited. She placed her bag on the counter and looked around the room. "I came to check on you," she said. Her tone was firm but warm. "I did not want you sitting here alone with all that happened." Amara smiled softly. "I am all right. It still hurts, but I am all right." Nadia studied her face and nodded. "You look calm, strong too." Amara gestured toward the jars. "I started working on Grandma's recipes again." Nadia opened one of the jars, dipped a small amount on her fingertip, and rubbed it across her hand. Her eyebrows lifted. "This is good, very good. You did this from memory." "With the recipe book," Amara said. "This could be a brand," Nadia said confidently. "Something rooted in our family's history, something that carries your name and your spirit. People are looking for products like this. Natural, authentic, real." Amara let out a slow breath. "It feels right, but I am not sure how far I can take it." "You do not need to take it far today," Nadia replied. "You only need to start." They spent the next 2 hours talking through possibilities. Nadia suggested selling to neighbors first. Amara mentioned wanting to test the formulas on different hair types. They brainstormed gentle names for each product. Nadia took out her phone and wrote down ideas as Amara spoke. Every time Amara expressed doubt, Nadia reminded her that every powerful story begins with one small step. Before leaving, Nadia hugged her tightly. "What happened to you was wrong, but sometimes life clears people out so your path can open. You are stronger than you think, and you are about to build something important. I feel it." Amara watched her cousin drive away and felt a steady warmth settle in her chest. She walked back into her kitchen and looked at the jars once more. The scent of natural oils drifted through the air. She picked up a clean notebook and wrote her first words in it. "This is where I begin again." She spent the rest of the afternoon organizing her workspace. She bought small containers, labels, and handwritten tags from a nearby dollar store. She placed everything neatly on the shelves above her counter. Nothing looked polished or professional yet, but it looked like the beginning of a dream. As evening approached, she decided to walk to the park a few blocks away. The air was cool and the trees swayed gently. Families sat on benches. Children played on swings. A few joggers passed by with headphones. Amara sat on a bench near the fountain and watched the water ripple under the lights. She took a long breath. It amazed her how life could shift so quickly. Just a few days ago, she had been preparing for Camille's gala, believing her marriage was still grounded. Now she was sitting alone in a park, carrying a heartbreak she did not ask for and a new purpose she never expected. Her phone buzzed. A message from David appeared on the screen. "I hope you are doing okay." Amara stared at the words for a few seconds. She did not want to carry anger. She did not want to let bitterness shape her decisions. She typed a simple response. "I am finding my way." David replied almost instantly. "I did not want to hurt you." She exhaled slowly and wrote, "I hear you, I release you, please live your life peacefully." She placed her phone in her bag and let the moment pass. She did not need closure from him. She needed clarity within herself, and she was starting to find it. When she returned home, she took a warm shower and let the steam ease the tension in her shoulders. She stood in front of the mirror afterward and touched the ends of her hair. They felt soft from the balm she had made earlier. She smiled slightly. Something small had shifted inside her. Not enough to erase the pain, but enough to remind her that she still had a life worth shaping. Before going to sleep, she opened her grandmother's recipe book again. She read the notes written in the margins. She traced the handwriting with her fingertips and felt her grandmother's presence in every line. She sat at her desk and wrote a new sentence in her own notebook. "I will build something honest and strong." She placed the notebook on the nightstand, turned off the lamp, and slipped under the covers. The house settled into silence, but it did not feel heavy anymore. It felt like a chapter quietly closing while another waited just beyond sunrise. Amara fell asleep knowing she had survived her worst day. She also fell asleep knowing she was about to start her best journey. Amara woke up the next morning with a clearer sense of direction than she expected. The heaviness of betrayal had not disappeared, but it no longer ruled her thoughts. It felt like something sitting behind her rather than on top of her. She stretched gently, opened her curtains, and allowed the sunlight to fill the room. The day looked warm and inviting, as if the world was giving her permission to step into something new. She made breakfast and sat at the kitchen table with her notebook open. She flipped through yesterday's ideas and added new ones. The more she wrote, the more everything in her life began to make sense. She was not simple. She was not comfortable. She had simply been quiet because she was loyal. She had dreams inside her that had been waiting for space to grow, and now those dreams were finally able to breathe. She spent the morning organizing her ingredients again. She washed every jar and cleaned the counters thoroughly. She wanted her workspace to feel peaceful before she created anything else. When she opened her grandmother's recipe book, she ran her hand slowly across the page, feeling connected to something bigger than herself. She chose one recipe for a light hair oil, something she remembered her grandmother using on her edges when she was a child. She mixed the oil in slow motions, paying attention to the fragrance as it warmed. She poured the mixture into small amber bottles she bought from the dollar store. She set them in a neat row and looked at them with quiet pride. She whispered, "Thank you, Grandma," before putting the bottles aside to cool. Around noon, her neighbor Mrs. Green knocked on the door. She was an older woman with soft gray curls and a gentle smile. She lived next door and had watched Amara grow from a young newlywed into a woman who handled herself with quiet strength. Mrs. Green opened her arms the moment Amara came to the door. "I brought you lunch," she said, handing her a container. "I figured you might not feel like cooking today." Amara smiled warmly. "Thank you, that is kind." Mrs. Green stepped inside and set the container on the counter. Her eyes drifted toward the jars and bottles. "What have you been making here?" Amara explained the recipes and showed her the jars. Mrs. Green opened one bottle, lifted it toward her nose, and inhaled softly. Her eyes widened with genuine surprise. "This smells wonderful. My scalp has been dry for weeks. Mind if I try some?" Amara nodded. Mrs. Green rubbed a small amount onto her fingers and then across the edge of her scalp. Her face relaxed instantly. "Oh, honey," she said with a pleased sigh, "this feels better than anything I have bought in years." Her words landed softly inside Amara's heart. Mrs. Green looked at her with an expression that held both encouragement and truth. "You have something special here. You should not keep this to yourself." Amara felt a small rush of hope. "You really think so?" "I know so," Mrs. Green said. "I have lived long enough to recognize talent when I see it." She placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. "And I know this too. When life pushes you out of one door, it does not leave you on the street. It opens a better one. You just have to walk through it." The visit was short, but Mrs. Green's words stayed with Amara long after she left. They brought her comfort in a way she did not realize she needed. She sat at the table and looked at the jars again with renewed confidence. Later in the afternoon, she decided to walk to a small community shop 2 blocks away. The owner, Mia, was known for supporting local makers. The shop sold handcrafted candles, small art pieces, natural soaps, and accessories. Amara had always admired it but never imagined approaching it with her own products. She placed 3 jars and 2 bottles into a cloth bag, took a slow breath, and walked toward the shop. The bell chimed when she opened the door, and Mia looked up from behind the counter with her usual bright expression. "Amara," she said, "I have not seen you in a while." Amara managed a gentle smile. "It has been a lot these past few days." Mia nodded knowingly. "Life can crash all at once sometimes, you holding up." "I am trying," Amara said. "What brings you in?" Mia asked. Amara placed the bag on the counter and took out her products. "I have been making some natural hair balms and oils from my grandmother's recipes. I wanted to see if you might try them or give me some feedback." Mia opened a jar and studied the texture. Then she smelled it and closed her eyes with appreciation. She tested a small amount on her hand and smiled. "You made this?" "Yes," Amara said quietly. "This is impressive," Mia said. "Natural, smooth, strong scent but not overwhelming. This is professional quality, Amara." She inspected the bottles next. "Did you consider selling these?" "I want to," Amara said, "but I do not know where to start." Mia leaned on the counter. "Start here, leave me a few. I will put them on the shelf and see how customers respond. If people like them, we will talk about a regular supply." Amara felt her chest tighten with gratitude. "You would really do that?" "Of course," Mia said. "I believe in giving people a chance when something feels genuine, and this feels genuine." Amara thanked her repeatedly. She walked home with lighter steps than she had taken in days. Something inside her began to shift, not just emotionally but spiritually. She felt seen again. She felt capable. She felt like she was stepping into a new part of her identity. When she reached her house, she placed the notebook on the table and wrote a new line across the top of a blank page. "First shop said yes." She underlined it and smiled to herself. She felt the beginning of momentum growing around her, slow but steady. As evening settled in, she cooked a simple dinner and ate it peacefully. After washing her dishes, she sat on her couch with a blanket across her lap. She turned on soft music and allowed her mind to wander. She did not think about David. She did not think about Camille. She did not think about betrayal. She thought about the shelf in Mia's shop where her products would sit. She pictured someone picking up one jar, opening it, and feeling the same comfort she felt the first time she smelled the recipe. She whispered to herself, "I will build this with grace." Before going to bed, she cleaned her workspace again and arranged her supplies for the next day. She placed the grandmother's recipe book next to her notebook, ready for morning. She turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and rested with a steadiness she had not felt in years. She fell asleep holding a new truth. She was not rebuilding from pain. She was building from purpose. Amara woke early with a soft stretch and a sense of purpose already forming inside her. She walked straight to the kitchen to check the oils and balms she had left to settle overnight. Each jar looked smooth and perfect under the morning light. The fragrances blended beautifully, reminding her once again of her grandmother's small kitchen, where wisdom came in the form of simple ingredients and quiet patience. She brewed tea and opened her notebook to review her goals for the week. Her handwriting filled several pages now. She wrote them without pressure, allowing her ideas to come naturally. She felt proud of herself for following through. She felt proud for creating something positive during a time that could have easily broken her. After breakfast, she spent the next few hours mixing new batches of product. She worked slowly, paying attention to every detail. She reminded herself she was building something with her hands that might one day carry her name across shelves and cities. She kept her movements steady. The more she created, the stronger she felt. By midday, she packed a small tote bag with samples for Mia's shop. She decided to walk instead of drive. The weather was warm and pleasant. The sky held a gentle blue tone, and a soft breeze brushed across her face with every step she took. She had not allowed herself to enjoy the outdoors in a long time. Felt new, almost cleansing. When she reached Mia's shop, she found 2 customers browsing the shelves. Mia was arranging candles near the front. She looked up and smiled when she saw Amara enter. "I was hoping you would come today," Mia said, "because your products are already getting attention." Amara blinked in surprise. "Really?" Mia nodded. "A woman bought the balm this morning. She tried it right here in the store and said it felt better than anything she had used before. She asked if I had more." Amara felt warmth spreading through her chest. "I brought additional jars," she said, placing the tote bag on the counter. Mia took out the new products and arranged them neatly on a small wooden display. "I want these right in the front section. People notice new items as soon as they walk in." As they organized the display, one of the customers approached them. She was a woman in her 30s with thick natural hair pulled back into a puff. She held the jar she had purchased earlier that morning. "Excuse me," she said to Amara. "Are you the one who made this?" Amara nodded shyly. "Yes, I did." The woman's eyes brightened. "This is amazing. I used a little on my hair before heading to work and the softness shocked me. I have tried so many products before, but this one felt different. Thank you for creating this." Amara felt her throat tighten with emotion. She tried to respond but needed a moment to gather her words. Finally, she smiled gently. "I appreciate you saying that. It means more than you know." The woman nodded gratefully and walked out of the store. Mia turned to Amara with a wide grin. "See, I told you this would grow." Amara didn't reply right away. She placed her hands lightly on the counter, grounding herself in the moment. Something inside her was shifting in a way she couldn't fully explain. It was not ambition. It was not pride. It was purpose taking shape inside her spirit. She stayed in the shop for a while longer, helping Mia test fragrances for a new candle line. They talked about local events, small businesses, and community gatherings that might be perfect for showcasing her products. Amara took notes in her phone and listened closely. She had never stepped into marketing before, but the ideas came to her naturally. Before leaving the shop, Mia handed her a small box. "Consider this your first official display shelf," she said. "Use it at home to stay organized." Amara accepted the box and thanked her. She walked home with a lighter step. Her heart felt steady. She felt productive. She felt in alignment with something meaningful. When she reached her house, she placed the display box on the counter and started organizing her jars. She made labels with simple handwritten names. She folded small pieces of brown paper and tied them with string for a rustic, natural look. Everything looked humble but beautiful. She stepped back and admired the progress. Later in the afternoon, she received a call from Nadia. Her cousin sounded excited. "You are not going to believe this," Nadia said. "I showed your balm to one of my co-workers. She wants to buy 2 jars tomorrow, and her sister wants one too." Amara laughed softly. "This is happening faster than I expected." "It is happening because it is good," Nadia said. "Do not doubt what God is doing here." After a long conversation, Amara hung up the phone and felt a quiet joy settle in her. She stepped outside onto her porch to enjoy the last bit of sunlight. The sky shifted to soft peach and lavender tones as the day ended. She breathed in the warm evening air and allowed herself to feel proud. For the first time in days, she realized she had not thought about David. She had not thought about Camille. She had not replayed the hurtful words. She had spent an entire day building something instead of reliving something. As night approached, she gathered her mail from the porch. Among the envelopes was a letter addressed to her. She opened it and found the final divorce papers inside. Her heart thudded once but stayed steady. She read through each page carefully and signed the designated lines. Her hands did not tremble. Her breath did not shake. She felt a soft release in her chest. She placed the papers on the table and whispered, "I am free." She cooked a simple dinner and ate quietly. After cleaning up, she pulled her blanket across her lap on the couch and turned on soft jazz. The music wrapped around her like comfort. She opened her notebook and wrote a single line, "My heart is healing." Amara turned off the lights downstairs and climbed the steps at a slow, peaceful pace. When she reached her bedroom, she caught her reflection in the hallway mirror and paused. There was something different in her face. A steady calm. A quiet confidence. A softness that came from knowing she had created something meaningful with her own hands. She changed into her night clothes and slipped under the covers. The room felt warm and safe, nothing like the nights she used to spend holding secrets she never asked for. She closed her eyes and let her mind drift toward the small victories of the day. For the first time since her marriage ended, she felt her spirit settling instead of searching. She knew she was moving in the right direction. She knew she was beginning again in a way that honored her heart. Sleep found her quickly, not as an escape, but as a gentle reward for the work she had done and the strength she had shown. Amara stayed curled beneath the blanket for a while, letting the soft jazz drift through the room. The steady rhythm matched the new calm taking shape inside her. She didn't feel the need to move quickly or rush toward anything. She allowed her thoughts to settle the way her products settled on the counter, slowly and naturally. Her phone buzzed on the table. She reached for it without shifting her body much. A message from Mia appeared at the top of the screen. It wasn't long, but it carried a tone that pulled Amara straight into focus. "You need to see this, come by when you can." There was no panic in the message, no urgency, just a hint of something unfolding. Amara folded the blanket, placed it on the arm of the couch, grabbed her keys, and stepped outside. The air felt warm as she walked. Not morning, not night, not any reset. Just the same day continuing its slow, steady rise around her. She moved down the sidewalk at a pace that matched her heartbeat, calm but ready for whatever was waiting. The bell on Mia's door chimed the moment she entered the shop. A small group of customers stood near the front table, passing around the jars Amara had dropped off earlier. Mia was behind the counter speaking to a woman Amara recognized immediately. The woman held herself with the confidence of someone people listened to. She had long curls, a stylish outfit, and the kind of presence that made rooms adjust. Amara had seen her before on social media. She reviewed local beauty products and her words held weight. Mia motioned for Amara to come closer. "There she is," Mia said. "Amara, meet Lydia. She's the reviewer I told you about." Lydia stepped forward with interest. "So you are the one who made this?" Amara nodded. "Yes." Lydia lifted a jar toward her nose, inhaled softly, and smiled. "This stands out. And trust me, I try a lot of products. This one feels clean, real, no filler, no gimmick." Her voice didn't carry flattery, it carried honesty. "I want to feature this in my next review," Lydia said. "People follow me because I tell the truth. And the truth is, this product deserves attention." Mia watched the exchange with satisfaction. "I told you she would like it." Amara felt something warm settle across her chest. Not adrenaline, not disbelief, something steadier, something that felt like alignment. Lydia placed the jar back on the table. "How soon can you restock these shelves? People will come looking after the video goes up." Amara didn't hesitate. "I can prepare more right away." "Good," Lydia said. "I will tag you in the post so people know where to find you." She left the shop with the same elegance she arrived with, and the moment she stepped out, a customer who had been listening turned toward Amara. "Are you really the creator?" the woman asked. "Yes," Amara said. The woman smiled. "I want one before everything sells out." Mia handed her a jar and the woman walked away pleased. As the shop quieted a little, Mia leaned across the counter. "This is your turning point," she said, "and it came to you instead of you chasing it." Amara let the words settle inside her. She didn't reply right away because she wanted to feel the meaning behind them. Everything happening today wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. It didn't feel forced. It felt natural, as if her work had been waiting for the world to find it. She stayed at the shop for a while, helping Mia arrange the display and answering questions from customers who kept walking in. Each conversation felt different, filled with curiosity, support, and genuine excitement. Not one person asked about her personal life. Not one person mentioned David or Camille. No one knew her heartbreak, they only knew her work. And for the first time in a long time, she felt seen without the shadow of someone else's choices. When she eventually stepped out of the shop, the city felt different. Not because anything physical had changed, but because her place in it was shifting. She walked with quiet purpose, the kind that did not need attention or applause. She reached her home, set her bag on the counter, and began organizing the ingredients she needed for the next round of jars. Her hands moved easily through the motions, each step familiar but filled with new meaning. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from a number she didn't recognize. "I own a local salon. One of my clients brought your product in today. I want to try it for myself. Do you sell directly?" Amara placed the phone down slowly. She took a breath and allowed the moment to settle the same way she allowed her oils to settle in the jars. Her life was moving without hesitation now. People weren't finding her by accident. They were finding her because she finally stepped into her gift. She picked up her notebook and wrote a line across the next page. "Today the world discovered my work." There was no pride in the sentence, only truth. She prepared a new batch of balm as the day continued around her. The scent filled her home with warmth, and the rhythm of her work felt like calm water moving across rock. She didn't think about what she had lost. She thought about what she was becoming. By the time she finished, the shelves in her kitchen were full again. She placed the final jar at the top and stepped back. This wasn't a new beginning. This was her arrival. Amara worked through the evening with a level of focus she hadn't felt in years. Her kitchen, once a place where she cooked simple meals and talked through life's small moments with someone who barely listened, now felt transformed into the center of something meaningful. The jars on the counter were no longer just products she hoped people would notice. They had become evidence that she was stepping into a life she didn't even know she deserved. As she tightened the lid on the last jar of the batch, she ran her hand across the row of filled containers and felt a steady sense of pride rise inside her. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the kind of pride that grows when a woman realizes she has finally returned to herself after years of dimming her own light. A soft knock on the door pulled her attention away. When she opened it, she found her neighbor's teenage daughter, Lyra, standing there with a hopeful expression. Lyra had always been polite but shy, a quiet girl who kept her curls tied back because she struggled with them. Today she held a small bag in her hand. "Miss Amara," she said, "my mom told me you've been making hair products. She tried a little from a sample she got at the shop. I was wondering if you had anything for thick curls that get dry fast." Amara stepped aside and welcomed her in. She watched the girl's shoulders relax the moment she entered the warm kitchen. Lyra placed the bag on the counter and looked at the jars with wide eyes, almost as if she was seeing possibility for herself in each bottle. Amara pulled one jar forward, explaining which ingredients would help with dryness and which would help define curls without weighing them down. Lyra listened closely, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. When Amara placed a sample in her hands, Lyra smiled in a way that made the room feel lighter. She thanked her repeatedly before leaving, her energy brighter than when she had arrived. Moments like that shifted something deeper in Amara. It wasn't just about customers. It wasn't about sales or business strategy. It was about watching her work make someone else feel seen and cared for. It was about restoring a sense of confidence in girls like Lyra who had never been taught to love their own natural beauty. That part of the journey made everything feel sacred. As she cleared her workspace, her phone rang again. This time it was a number she recognized. Kendra's assistant. The call was brief but important. The salon owner wanted samples delivered the same evening. She had clients booked for tomorrow who wanted to try something natural and strengthening, and she believed Amara's formula could stand beside the luxury brands they carried. Hearing that sent a calm thrill through Amara's chest. She packed a small box carefully, wrapped it in simple twine, and headed toward the salon district. The city felt different now. The lights along the street seemed to shine with more intention. The air held a quiet excitement she wasn't used to feeling. When she entered Kendra's flagship salon, she was greeted by soft music, the warm scent of eucalyptus, and the receptionist who offered her a professional but impressed nod. The assistant came out a moment later, accepted the box with gratitude, and assured her Kendra would contact her personally after the first round of client tests. Amara thanked them and walked out with steady confidence, her steps carrying the weight of someone who finally believed in the value of her own gift. On her way back, she didn't think about the painful words David once said at the gala. She didn't think about the moment Camille chose to step into something fragile and complicated. Those scenes felt distant now, like old chapters she had outgrown. Her mind stayed focused on the life she was shaping and the way it kept unfolding in front of her with quiet purpose. She returned home, set her keys on the table, and reviewed messages from women asking about her products. Each request reminded her that her name was now traveling into rooms she once watched from the sidelines. For the rest of the evening, she planned her next steps, jotting down ideas for a small website, possible packaging upgrades, and a simple brand story rooted in her grandmother's teachings. She didn't chase perfection. She chased authenticity. She wanted anyone who touched her product to feel the same care she felt when mixing it. As she organized her notes, she realized she wasn't just creating a business. She was creating a legacy that carried her family's history and her own heart. By the time she stepped away from her workspace, the house felt different again. Not because anything had changed physically, but because of the way she was filling it with purpose. She walked through each room with a sense of ownership she had never felt when she shared the space with David. Back then, she tiptoed around his moods, his ambitions, his comparisons. Now every corner reflected her own independence and quiet strength. She wasn't rebuilding her identity, she was reclaiming it. Later, as she sat at her desk reviewing recipe notes, her phone vibrated again. This time the message came from an unexpected source. A stylist from a well-known photography studio wanted to test her hair oil on models for an upcoming shoot. The message was polite but enthusiastic. It mentioned that her product had been recommended by someone who tried it earlier in the day. Amara placed the phone on the desk, leaned back in her chair, and let the moment sink in slowly, calmly, wisely. Her work was entering spaces she once thought were out of her reach, and it was happening not because she begged for attention, but because her gift spoke louder than her past. She wrote another line in her notebook, the one she kept next to her grandmother's recipe book. "My name is traveling further than my pain ever did." She closed the notebook gently and looked across her home, feeling a sense of peace that didn't need explanation or approval. Her life was shifting in front of her, steady and real. She wasn't waiting for healing anymore. She was living it. The response from the photographer's studio stayed in Amara's mind as she finished organizing her desk. She had never imagined her products touching the beauty world beyond her own kitchen, Yet the momentum kept building in ways that felt natural, almost guided. She ran her fingers across the edge of the notebook and allowed herself to absorb the moment without rushing ahead of it. Growth felt different when it came softly. It felt steady rather than overwhelming. It felt earned rather than borrowed. As she prepared a small set of samples for the stylist, her doorbell rang. She wiped her hands and opened the door to find Lyra standing there again, but this time the shy teenager looked more confident than before. Her curls were styled beautifully, lifted and defined in a way that carried quiet pride. Her smile was wide, and her posture had changed. She walked with the ease of a girl who finally recognized her own beauty. "My mom said you should see this," Lyra said with a hint of excitement. "She helped me style it this time." Amara stepped closer and admired the transformation. Lyra's hair looked moisturized, healthy, and full of life. The curls framed her face with softness, and her eyes glowed with the confidence she'd gained just from feeling beautiful in her own skin. Amara touched one curl gently, checking the softness, and nodded with genuine approval. "You look incredible," Amara said. "This suits you so well." Lyra beamed. "I never liked wearing my hair out. It was always too much. But this made me feel different. Thank you for making something that works." Amara felt that warm pride settle in her chest again. "I am happy you feel good," she said. "That is the real purpose behind all of this." Lyra hugged her quickly, then stepped back with a grin that carried more sincerity than any review online. When she left, Amara returned to her kitchen with a deeper understanding of why her work mattered. It wasn't just ingredients and jars. It was identity. It was self-worth. It was legacy. She packed the request for the photographer's studio next, placing each bottle in a small cloth pouch. As she worked, she remembered moments when she doubted her own worth during her marriage. She remembered the comparisons David made, the way he praised other women's ambition while treating her dreams like hobbies. Those memories no longer stung. They simply reminded her of the distance she had traveled from the woman she once tried to be for someone who never saw her clearly. The studio's courier arrived soon after. The assistant accepted the samples with genuine appreciation, explaining that their next shoot focused heavily on natural beauty and textured hair. Amara nodded through their conversation, and the moment the door closed, she stood still in her living room for a few seconds, letting the impact of it settle. Her products were stepping into rooms many aspiring creators tried for years to reach. It wasn't a miracle. It was a reflection of dedication and honesty. As the day moved forward, she returned to her workspace and began experimenting with a new formula. Not because someone requested it, but because her spirit felt open and creative. She adjusted ratios of oils, tested a new scent blend, and took her time until the texture felt right. She worked with patience, not pressure. She knew that anything created with care carried its own energy. The notifications on her phone kept buzzing softly. Each alert revealed messages from potential customers, salon owners, and women who wanted to know her process. Amara read their words in calm batches, never letting herself get pulled into the noise of quick success. She responded thoughtfully, one message at a time, expressing gratitude and giving clear information without rushing to accommodate every request. She promised herself she would grow steadily, not recklessly. Later that day, as she prepared inventory, a video notification popped up on her screen. Lydia had posted her review. The thumbnail showed Lydia holding Amara's jar with a thoughtful expression, the kind she used for products she respected. Amara pressed play. Lydia spoke clearly, explaining the texture, fragrance, and results she experienced. She mentioned how unusual it was to find a product made with intention and not just marketing. She ended the video saying, "This is the kind of creation that comes from someone who cares." Comments poured in instantly. People wanted to buy. People asked for shipping details. People tagged friends and sisters and coworkers. Amara read through them slowly and felt the movement of something larger than her own hands. Her work was stepping into conversations she had not initiated. Her name was traveling in circles she had never entered. She walked around her home with a quieter rhythm after watching the review. She didn't jump or scream or celebrate loudly. She carried the news like a woman who had been through enough to know that growth should be handled with grace. She sat on the edge of her couch, folded her hands together, and allowed her heart to absorb the appreciation without letting it shake her balance. The next few hours flowed into packaging, responding to messages, and creating a simple system to track orders. She didn't have a website yet, but she wasn't worried. She knew she could build one soon. She worked with a calm smile, understanding that life wasn't rushing her, it was guiding her. In the evening, Mia called to check in. Her voice carried excitement. You should see the line of people who came today asking about your products, Mia said. Some bought other items while waiting for you to restock. Your name already has weight. Amara leaned against her counter as she listened, feeling grounded. I appreciate you believing in me from the start, Mia chuckled. I didn't believe in you out of kindness. I believed in you because your work deserves attention. They ended the call with warmth and encouragement. When Amara set her phone down, she walked slowly toward her shelf of ingredients and paused. She touched a jar of shea butter with quiet affection, remembering how small this all began. She remembered the heartbreak that pushed her into rediscovering her grandmother's recipes. She remembered the moment she said she would choose herself. And now, standing in her home, she felt the truth move through her with gentle certainty. She wasn't building a business. She was building a life she had once been too afraid to imagine. She sat at her table, wrote a single sentence in her notebook, and let her hand rest on the page. The world is meeting the woman I was always meant to be. She didn't write anything else after that. She didn't need to. The sentence carried the truth of her journey more clearly than anything else she could add. The next wave of change arrived without warning, carried quietly through the connections of women who kept passing her name from one conversation to another. Amara didn't chase the momentum. She only followed the steady rhythm of creating and refining, letting her work speak for itself. The jars lined across her kitchen shelves no longer looked like homemade experiments. They looked like the beginning of a brand that held identity, culture, and generational wisdom in every blend. As she organized a new batch of inventory, her phone lit up with a call from the stylist who received her samples earlier. She answered with curiosity, and the woman's tone came through the speaker filled with enthusiasm. I tested your oil today, the stylist said. We had a model with really thick curls, and your formula worked beautifully. Everyone in the studio wanted to know what I used. Amara felt her hand rest instinctively on the counter to steady the warmth in her chest. I am glad it helped. Oh, it did more than help, the stylist continued. The photographer asked if we could use your products for the rest of the shoot this month. He said the results were stronger than most high-end brands we keep on hand. I want to place a request for a larger order if you can manage it. Amara didn't rush to answer. She allowed the words to settle to find their place in her spirit before she responded. I can prepare more, she said. Just let me know the quantities you need. The stylist outlined details and logistics, and when the call ended, Amara caught a quiet smile forming on her lips. Not excitement that made her heart race, but a deeper satisfaction that grounded her. She turned toward her shelves and began gathering ingredients, each movement steady and intentional. While she worked, another message arrived on her phone. This one came from a well-known local boutique owner who specialized in high-quality natural products. She explained that she had been hearing Amara's name from multiple people in the community and wanted to meet in person to discuss stocking her items. The message was respectful and warm, written by a woman who clearly valued authenticity in the creators she supported. Amara read it twice, feeling the significance grow in her chest. She set the phone aside and continued preparing formulas. Her house felt alive with purpose, every corner carrying the scent of oils and herbs, every shelf holding proof of progress. She didn't need to tell anyone her life was changing. The energy inside her home already whispered it. Later that afternoon, she packaged a set of oils for the boutique owner and arranged them in a simple but elegant box. Her hands moved with calm precision. She didn't need luxury packaging yet. She needed honesty. Her grandmother's recipes had always carried power because they were rooted in real care, not marketing tricks. Once the box was ready, she stepped outside and walked toward the meeting place the owner suggested. The boutique sat on a vibrant corner surrounded by other small businesses. The moment Amara entered, she felt warmth. Shelves lined with handmade soaps, candles, teas, and skincare products greeted her. Everything in the shop reflected intention and story. The owner, a woman named Delia, stepped out from behind a display table and greeted her with a smile that felt both welcoming and discerning. Delia shook her hand while studying her face with an expression that suggested she could read sincerity without effort. You must be Amara, she said. Everyone has been talking about your products. Amara nodded softly. Thank you for reaching out. Delia guided her to a small seating area in the back of the shop. They sat across from each other as natural light poured through the window. Amara placed the box on the table and explained the formulas inside. Delia opened one jar, sampled the texture, and pressed a small amount onto the back of her hand. She closed her eyes briefly and inhaled the scent. This is beautiful, she said. The balance is perfect. Not too heavy, not too light. You can feel there is history behind it. I want to stock these in my store." Her voice carried certainty, not hesitation. Amara nodded with gratitude. "I can prepare a small initial order." "I would like to start with 20 units, Delia said. "And if they perform the way people say they do, we will expand quickly." The number was larger than any order she had received so far, but Amara didn't panic. She felt the weight of the opportunity settle across her shoulders in a way that strengthened her rather than overwhelmed her. "I can provide that," she said calmly. They discussed timelines, pricing, and shelf placement. When the meeting ended, Delia walked her to the door with the same warm confidence she had shown throughout their conversation. "Amara," she said before the door opened, "you have something rare. Products like this do not come from ambition alone. They come from memory and intention. People can feel that." "Keep going." Amara stepped outside with a quiet nod. She walked home with purpose, not urgency. Her steps were steady, her heart calm. She was beginning to see herself the way others were beginning to see her. Capable, skilled, authentic, someone who created value without noise. When she returned home, she placed her bag on the table and sat down for a moment. She didn't rush into production. She didn't call anyone with the news. She let the moment breathe. The truth settled across her spirit slowly and completely. Her life was not rising because she wanted to prove someone wrong. It was rising because she finally stopped holding herself back. She reached for her notebook and wrote a new line at the bottom of the page she had last filled. "People are finding my work because my work is finally finding me." She rested the pen against the paper and leaned back into her chair. The quiet around her didn't feel empty. It felt full, full of possibility. Full of truth, full of a future she was no longer afraid to claim. She stood, walked to her shelves, and began preparing the larger order with the same deliberate care she used from the beginning. The scent of warm oils filled the room, and the motion of her hands felt like prayer. Each jar she filled carried part of her story, part of her grandmother's legacy, and part of the woman she had grown into since choosing herself. Nothing about her journey felt rushed or uncertain anymore. It felt inevitable. Amara returned to her work table with renewed focus, feeling the weight of her grandmother's legacy guiding her hands. Each bottle she prepared for Delia's boutique carried more than a formula. It carried the echoes of every woman in her family who once mixed oils in small kitchens, believing their traditions mattered even when the world didn't understand their worth. She stirred each blend with care, allowing the scent of herbs and warm butters to fill the room until it felt like a space touched by memory. Nothing rushed her, nothing pushed her. Everything unfolded in a quiet rhythm that matched the way she was rising as a woman. As she arranged the filled jars in neat rows, her phone buzzed with a message from the photographer's studio. It wasn't a request this time. It was feedback. A short note from one of the models wrote, "Whatever you made softened my hair better than any product I've used in years. Thank you." Amara read the message twice, letting the sincerity of it reach her. Compliments from strangers felt different. They didn't come with history. They didn't come with expectations. They came from a place of genuine gratitude. She continued preparing the boutique order with a centered calm that grew stronger inside her. When she carried the finished jars to her living room, the sight stopped her for a moment. Boxes stacked neatly on one side, ingredients sorted by category, empty containers waiting for the next batch, and her notebook filled with ideas that kept growing with her. Her home didn't look like the one she once shared with David. It looked like the beginning of a life fully shaped by her own hands. Her phone rang soon after. It was Nadia, who didn't bother with greetings before speaking. "Tell me why people at my job are talking about a natural hair brand called LeBlanc Naturals," she said with an excited laugh. "Someone sent me a video review without knowing I know the creator." Amara felt a soft warmth spread through her chest. "People are beginning to notice." "That is an understatement," Nadia replied. "You are becoming a topic, and you're doing it quietly. I'm proud of you." The two friends talked for a while, but the entire conversation carried a different tone than the ones they had in the past. There was no pity, no comparison, no analysis of what had gone wrong with her marriage. It felt like a chapter that belonged to a younger version of herself. The Amara speaking now carried a maturity that didn't need validation from anyone but herself. After the call, she packaged the boutique order and set it beside the door. Her living room was filled with movement, but her spirit remained still. She looked around her home and realized how much of her life had shifted without her forcing anything. She wasn't chasing success. She wasn't chasing closure. She wasn't chasing the feeling of being enough. She was standing in a place where those things naturally found her because she had stepped into the truth of who she always was beneath everything she survived. As she returned to her workspace, another message came through. This time, it was from a local community organization hosting a women's business event. They had heard about her products and wanted her to speak briefly about cultural traditions in beauty and the importance of heritage-based entrepreneurship. Amara read the invitation slowly. She wasn't accustomed to speaking on stages. She wasn't the type to chase the spotlight, but the thought didn't scare her the way it once might have. Her journey wasn't about presenting herself as powerful. It was about sharing something real that could help others understand the strength of their own heritage. She drafted a simple response, accepting the invitation. She didn't doubt herself, not even for a second. A short while later, she stepped into her bedroom to find the small box of items she kept from her grandmother. Inside was the old recipe book, worn but strong, with faded handwriting and oil stains that carried years of memory. She ran her fingers gently across the cover, feeling a connection to the generations of women who had come before her. She wasn't holding a book. She was holding lineage. She carried the book back to her living room and placed it on the table. The sight of it alongside her modern jars created a quiet artistic contrast between past and present. It reminded her that everything she was building didn't come from reinvention. It came from remembrance. As she continued preparing orders, her phone lit up again. This time it was a voice message from Delia. She pressed play. Amara, the first batch sold out in less than 2 hours. I have customers returning to see if more arrived. When you are ready, we need to talk about expanding shelf space. Your work is too good to stay small. Amara closed her eyes for a moment, letting the message sink deeply into a place words rarely reached. She didn't feel overwhelmed. She didn't feel pressure. She felt alignment. That evening, she reorganized her home again, shifting one shelf to make room for supplies, moving another to store packaging materials. Her house looked different, not because she changed the furniture, but because she changed her role within it. She wasn't renting space inside her own life anymore. She was occupying it fully. She sat at her table and wrote a line that flowed out effortlessly. I am walking in purpose without chasing anything. She placed the pen down and leaned back in her chair. The night didn't feel heavy or lonely. It felt like a companion to her growth. Her mind wandered toward the women who would eventually use her products, the mothers, daughters, nieces, sisters, and friends who would feel seen because of something she created with love. A soft hum rose in her throat, almost like a tune her grandmother used to sing. She didn't force the memory. It came naturally, like a reminder that the women who came before her had never left her. She wasn't building a business. She was shaping a legacy that carried every part of her story, and the world was beginning to feel it. Amara woke the next day feeling steady in a way she hadn't felt in years, though she didn't mark the moment with routines or reflection. Her life no longer moved through cycles of morning or night. It moved through purpose. And today carried a different weight from the moment she stepped back into her workspace. The shelves were fuller than ever, each bottle representing a piece of the life she rebuilt through quiet persistence. Orders continued to come in, not because she advertised, but because women whispered her name to each other with the kind of reverence reserved for something that truly works. As she prepared a fresh batch of oil, she heard a soft tapping on her door. And she opened it. She found Delia standing there with a warm smile, holding one of the empty jars like a keepsake. The boutique owner didn't usually make house visits, which made her appearance feel significant. Amara welcomed her inside, and Delia walked through the room slowly, examining the workspace with an expression that showed both admiration and surprise. I wanted to see where all this magic comes from, Delia said as she set the jar on the counter. I meet a lot of people who create with ambition. You create with intention, that's what makes your work rise. Amara appreciated the words more deeply than she expected. I am grateful you believe in what I make, she said. Delia studied her for a moment. I do, and because I believe in your gift, I want to talk about something bigger. There's an event happening next month, an annual gathering for women entrepreneurs, investors, and brand founders. People come from all over the state. It's not a competition. It's not a sales event. It's a space where real stories matter. I want you there. Amara felt a quiet shift inside her. Not excitement, not fear, something steadier. What would I need to prepare? Just your truth, Delia said, and a few products to display. Your work will speak for itself. The two women spoke for another half hour. Delia explained the event, the opportunities it created, and the kind of audience it attracted. It wasn't a place where flashy brands performed. It was a place where sincerity held weight. By the time Delia left, Amara felt the subtle but undeniable expansion of her own path. She wasn't stepping into rooms for validation. She was stepping into them because her place was finally ready. After Delia left, Amara sat at her kitchen table and let the moment settle. Her journey wasn't loud, yet doors kept opening. Not because she pushed them, because she became the kind of woman who didn't need to knock. Her work knocked for her. She spent the next few hours organizing inventory with new purpose, choosing jars that represented her brand well and preparing small tester bottles. The warm scent of oils filled the house again, wrapping around her like a quiet reminder that she had turned pain into creation, and creation into legacy. Midway through packaging, a new message arrived from the photographer. It was a short video clip from the studio. A model with rich curls sat in a chair while the stylist applied Amara's oil. The camera captured the shine and softness instantly. The video wasn't promotional, it wasn't edited, it was raw footage of something genuinely beautiful happening in real time. She watched the clip twice, taking in the scene with a sense of pride that didn't need commentary. The stylist added a message under the clip. "Your work is becoming part of our workflow now. Keep creating. We'll keep using it." She placed her phone down slowly, understanding that moments like this weren't coincidence. They were part of a path she was walking with clarity she had never possessed in her marriage. Back then, she had tried to build a life around a man who didn't know how to value a woman who carried her own dreams. Now she was building a life that didn't require anyone else's permission to grow. As the day continued, she organized her workspace and created a small corner near her living room where she could display her products for the upcoming event. She arranged the jars carefully, adding small touches like handwritten notes and fabric wraps inspired by her grandmother's old patterns. The display wasn't extravagant, it was heartfelt, and that was enough. While adjusting one of the bottles, she paused suddenly, surprised by the feeling rising inside her. It wasn't nostalgia. It wasn't pride. It was recognition. She finally understood the difference between rebuilding a life and living a life that belongs to her. Her marriage had once convinced her she needed someone else's vision to guide her. Her heartbreak taught her that every step forward needed to come from her own spirit. Just as she settled the final jar in place, her phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. She answered it with calm curiosity. "Is this Amara LeBlanc?" a smooth voice asked. "Yes," she said. "This is Evelyn Grant, director of the Women of Heritage Foundation. I received your information through Delia. She mentioned your products carry cultural roots with integrity. I'd like to include your brand in our Heritage Spotlight segment next month." Amara didn't respond immediately. She let her breath settle so she could answer with clarity. "I would be honored." Evelyn continued. "We also offer mentorship connections and funding opportunities. This program is for women whose work reflects tradition and authenticity. Your brand has that energy. We'll send the official invitation tonight. Please review it when you can." When the call ended, Amara sat down for a moment, not to recover, not to reflect, but to acknowledge the truth unfolding around her. The life she thought she lost wasn't her real life. This was. As evening settled into her home, she wrote another line in her notebook, letting the words rise from the same place her strength came from. "I am becoming the woman I once prayed to grow into." She rested her hand on the notebook and looked around her home filled with jars, boxes, and the quiet hum of purpose. The world wasn't witnessing her breakthrough. They were witnessing her return, and she was nowhere near done rising. The weeks leading to the Women of Heritage event brought a quiet shift across the city, one Amara didn't fully grasp at first. She only noticed the change through small signs that kept appearing in the places she moved through. When she visited Mia's shop to restock the shelves, customers welcomed her with familiarity, calling her by name even though she hadn't met most of them. When she walked into Delia's boutique carrying the second shipment, women paused to ask whether she was the creator everyone had been talking about. Even in the grocery store, a mother approached her with a warm smile and softly mentioned that her daughter's hair had never looked healthier. None of it felt overwhelming. None of it felt rushed. It came with a softness that matched the way she had built her brand. People weren't admiring her rise. They were connecting to the honesty of her work, and that grounded her more deeply than any applause could. Her home transformed again, not with clutter or stress, but with thoughtful organization. A dedicated shelf held infused oils. Another stored packaging materials. A third displayed finished jars waiting for delivery. Amara moved through her space with the calm certainty of someone who finally belonged inside her own life. She didn't measure her progress through numbers or praise. She measured it through peace. One afternoon, Evelyn from the Women of Heritage Foundation invited her to a pre-event gathering at a historical cultural center. The space held artifacts, photographs, and handwritten journals from Black women who had shaped the city's history. Their stories lined the walls in quiet tribute. Amara walked through each room slowly, absorbing the strength and resilience of the women who had lived long before her. Their contributions weren't celebrated loudly in textbooks, yet the foundation kept their legacies alive with sincerity and care. Evelyn approached her near a display of old cotton combs and early natural hair formulas preserved in glass cases. "When I heard about your products," Evelyn said, "I thought of this place. Your work carries the same spirit as the women we honor here. You're not just building a business, you're continuing a lineage." Amara listened carefully, letting the words settle in her heart. "I feel connected to them," she said, "especially when I use my grandmother's recipes." Evelyn nodded. "That connection is what makes your work powerful. Women will feel it, investors will notice it, but more importantly, your community will trust it." They spoke for a while about the upcoming event, the structure of the presentations, and the types of women who would attend. There would be founders, healers, educators, donors, and cultural historians. It wasn't a place for ego, it was a place for truth, and that suited Amara perfectly. As the gathering ended, a woman with locks approached her with a curious smile. "You're Amara, right? The one with the hair oils everyone keeps mentioning." Amara nodded gently. "I've been searching for something rooted in tradition," the woman said. "A lot of brands talk about heritage, but your products feel like they're made with it. I'd love to feature you in our community magazine." The offer came without pressure, simply as an acknowledgement of value. Amara agreed, thanked her, and left the event feeling more grounded than she had all month. Back home, she settled into her workspace and began preparing samples for the heritage event. Her movements were steady, not rushed. She made each bottle with the same care she had given the first batch she ever created. Her grandmother's recipe book rested open beside her, its worn pages reminding her that she wasn't standing in success, she was standing in continuation. Every blend she made honored the women who came before her and the young girls who would come after. As she filled each jar, she noticed how the space around her felt alive. Not busy, alive. The scent of oils wrapped around her like memory. The gentle sound of jars tapping against the table felt like rhythm. The warmth in her chest felt like gratitude. While preparing the final set, an email arrived from one of the salons using her products. They wanted a long-term partnership, offering to carry her full line once it expanded. Amara read the message slowly, her heart settling deeper instead of racing. She responded with professionalism and care, outlining a timeline she could maintain without rushing her growth. Later, Delia arrived unexpectedly again, carrying a small folder. She placed it gently on Amara's table. "This is an invitation to the State Business Gala," she said. "Not the heritage event, something bigger. Someone nominated you without telling you. They want to highlight emerging creators who embody cultural excellence." Amara opened the folder carefully. The invitation was embossed with gold lettering and held a weight that felt significant. Delia watched her face with the expression of a mentor who already knew the magnitude of the moment. "You're becoming someone whose presence will be expected in rooms like these," Delia said. "Not because of fame, because of purpose." Amara held the invitation and allowed herself a slow breath. She didn't feel intimidated. She didn't feel unworthy. She felt ready. "Thank you," she said softly. Delia smiled. "You earned this, one day at a time." After Delia left, Amara sat with the invitation resting against her palms. She imagined herself walking into a room filled with leaders, creators, and women with strong voices. She imagined standing confidently, not as someone who needed validation, but as someone who carried her grandmother's wisdom, her own resilience, and the support of a community that believed in her. She placed the invitation on her table beside the heritage event materials. 2 events, 2 opportunities, 2 chapters of her new life about to unfold. For a long moment, she simply stood in the center of her home, feeling the shift happening in her spirit. She wasn't returning to who she used to be. She wasn't defined by what she survived. She was evolving into someone her past self could barely imagine. She wrote one more line in her notebook. "Doors open differently when you walk in truth." She closed the notebook, placed her hand over it briefly, and let her heart rest in the quiet. The world was preparing to see her. And she was prepared to stand in that light without fear, without apology, and without looking back at the man who once doubted she would ever reach her own greatness. The gala was approaching, and she would walk into it as a woman transformed. The night of the gala arrived with a quiet confidence that settled in Amara long before she entered the grand hall. The venue stood beneath a canopy of warm lights, its marble steps glimmering as if they were washed in gold. Guests moved up the pathway with elegance, their conversations soft and steady, their presence reflecting the prestige of the event. Amara didn't rush. She walked with the calm assurance of someone who no longer measured her value by who once walked away from her. She wore a deep emerald gown that flowed with each step, simple but unforgettable, the kind of elegance that didn't demand attention yet naturally drew it. Inside, the hall carried a hum of anticipation. Tall arrangements of white orchids lined the room, and soft jazz drifted across the polished floors. Women in tailored gowns and men in classic suits turned to greet one another with warmth and familiarity. Amara took her place near the entrance, greeting those who recognized her name from the Women of Heritage program or the community magazine. She carried no nervousness. The room felt like a space she had been walking toward for years without knowing it. As she moved through the hall, she caught fragments of conversations about entrepreneurship, legacy, community investment, and cultural preservation. For the first time, she didn't feel like an observer. She felt like someone whose story belonged in these conversations. Her presence wasn't accidental. It was earned. When she reached the display tables where emerging creators showcased their work, she arranged her modest presentation. A few jars, a brief brand description, and a small framed photo of her grandmother holding the original recipe book. Women approached her with genuine curiosity, asking about the scent, the ingredients, and the meaning behind her formulas. Amara explained each detail with ease, her voice steady and warm. Every question reminded her that her work carried something deeper than beauty. It carried history. She was answering a question from a salon owner when she felt the shift in the room before she saw it. A ripple of attention moved through the crowd, followed by the soft rise of camera flashes. She turned her head slightly, not out of curiosity, but out of natural awareness. And there they were. David and Camille entered the hall together, stepping into the golden light with the polished confidence of a couple accustomed to admiration. Camille wore a gown that shimmered with expensive precision. David walked beside her with the same sharp posture he always carried when he believed the world was watching. Their presence created a buzz, not because they were beloved, but because wealth often demanded attention even when it didn't deserve it. Amara didn't flinch. She didn't shift her posture, lower her gaze, or step away from her table. She simply continued speaking to the woman in front of her, answering questions with the same calm dignity she had carried all year. But the moment David's eyes scanned the room, his gaze stopped abruptly. His expression changed from casual to stunned. The color in his face shifted as recognition struck him. Camille turned toward him, following his line of sight, and when she saw Amara standing confidently beside her brand display, her posture tightened with a shock she didn't have time to hide. For a moment, the air felt still. Not heavy, not dramatic, just still. Amara met their eyes with the same calm she used to meet her own reflection during the hardest days after their betrayal. She didn't offer a smile. She didn't offer coldness. She offered neutrality, a presence without resentment. Camille was the first to look away, her composure cracking faintly at the edges. David, however, struggled to steady himself. The version of Amara he once walked away from had been gentle, patient, and unsure of her own worth. The woman standing before him now carried a strength that didn't need to prove itself. That difference was loud enough to silence him. Evelyn approached Amara then, greeting her with warm pride as she prepared to introduce the night's speakers. Her timing lifted the tension in the room and brought all the attention back to the purpose of the gala. When Evelyn announced Amara as one of the featured voices for the cultural entrepreneurship segment, a soft cheer rose from the crowd. The recognition wasn't loud or forced. It was respectful, the kind of applause given to someone whose work had spoken for them long before they ever stepped on a stage. Amara walked to the podium with the grace of someone carrying her ancestors beside her. She stood beneath the lights, looked out at the faces before her, and let her heart settle before she spoke. "My grandmother believed that every woman who creates from her soul builds something that can outlive her," she said slowly. "She taught me that beauty is not an industry, it is a language, a connection, a memory passed down through hands that cared before we even existed." The room listened with deep focus, her voice carrying a warmth that reached every corner. "When I lost parts of my life that I thought were permanent," she continued, "I returned to the things my grandmother taught me. I returned to the kitchen where she mixed oils by hand. I returned to heritage. I returned to myself." And sometimes, returning to yourself is the greatest success you will ever experience. People nodded. A few wiped quiet tears. Even those who didn't know her story felt the truth in her tone. She ended with grace. I stand here tonight because healing taught me how to build, and building taught me how to rise. I am grateful to share that rise with all of you." The applause that followed wasn't explosive. It was warm and grounded, a reflection of respect rather than spectacle. Amara stepped away from the podium with calm satisfaction, returning to her table where women waited to congratulate her. David approached only after the crowd thinned, his movements hesitant and unsure. Camille followed behind him, her expression conflicted. When they stopped in front of Amara, she remained composed, offering neither invitation nor rejection. David spoke first, his voice lower than she remembered. "Amara, you look different." "I am different," she said simply. He swallowed hard, glancing at her display, the jars lined with intention and pride. "I didn't know you were doing this," he whispered. "You were not looking," she answered, her tone calm and final. Camille stepped forward, her voice soft and strained. "Your products are beautiful," she said. "You built something real." Amara nodded once. "I did." There was a long pause, one that revealed everything they felt but couldn't articulate: regret, confusion. The sudden understanding that their choices had never broken her. They had redirected her. David tried again. I should have supported you. I should have seen more." "You saw what you were capable of seeing," Amara replied, her voice steady. "And I saw what I needed to see once you left." He lowered his head, and Camille exhaled shakily, her eyes glistening not from guilt, but from the truth pressing against her composure. Amara looked at them both with the same grace she carried into the room. "I don't hold anger toward either of you," she said. "I healed without needing anything back from you. All that matters now is peace." David's eyes watered in a way he couldn't hide. Camille nodded, releasing a breath she had been holding. Amara continued, "I hope both of you choose honesty in your journey. I chose it in mine." And with that, she gently stepped away. No dramatic exit, no lingering looks, just a woman walking into her future without carrying the weight of the past. As she moved through the room, women paused to acknowledge her with soft smiles and nods of respect. Her work had placed her in a space where she was seen for her strength, not her scars. Her story wasn't about being left. It was about who she became after. And in that moment, the world finally saw her fully. Amara left the gala standing taller than she had ever stood, her spirit quiet, her dignity intact, and her path wide open.
Thank you for spending time with this story tonight. I hope it reminded you that nothing in life can dim a woman who learns to walk in her own truth. Healing is not about proving people wrong. It is about becoming whole in a way that feels gentle to your spirit. If this story touched your heart, support Black women's soul stories by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Turn on your notifications, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your presence here means more than you know.